Good morning, my beautiful reader friends. It's Tiffany with an IE, as you can see. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about my best books of 2020. I meant to post this last week, but I've just been so tired and just so many things, and I needed a break. So I'm posting it this week along with some other stuff. So hope you enjoy, and let's just get into it. So my first book, these are roughly in order. It was quite difficult, and I have 12 books in total because I couldn't just choose 10. It was difficult, so just choosing these 12. But yeah, so number one, I have, of course, The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I love this book. I've talked about it a bit on my channel, and people on BookTube have talked about it a lot. So yeah, it's magical. There's an underground library, there's a starless sea, there's like these magical doorways, and yeah, LGBTQ rep. There's just so many wonderful things about this book. So if you haven't read it, definitely go check it out. And yeah, I just love this so much, and it's such a pretty book too. So number two, you won't be surprised, but it is Sky Hunter by Marie Lu. Of course, I had to include a Marie Lu book on this, and she had 2 releases in 2020, but I chose this one because I didn't want to have both of her books on my list because, I mean, it might have been a bit too excessive even for me, but yeah, this one, I definitely liked this one more than her other release, but I mean, I love all her books. I give them all 5 stars, but this one was definitely a favorite, and it was difficult because I was trying to decide whether to put this as number 1 or keep The Starless Sea as number 1, but I ultimately went with this as number 2. And of course, it's beautiful as always. So yeah, and this has to do with like a near futuristic society where there are these monsters that were once human called ghosts, and the main character is part of like the Striker Force, which is kind of like the military that is defending the last free nation, Mara, against the Carenza Federation, who has taken over all the other continents, all the other countries on the continent. So yeah, all sorts of stuff happens, and it's such a good read. Marie's best, like one of her best books so far. Like, her writing just keeps getting better and better with every series. So book 3, I had to mention this. It's Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. I mean, like, I owe this book so much this past year because I made a friend that he got back into reading because of me and this book, and then he realized he's basically Howl from Howl's Moving Castle, book version, not movie version. But yeah, I'm just like, yeah, so I owe this book so much, and it's just really wonderful. It's very different from the movie. I love both the movie and the book, but yeah, it's just the characters are a bit more flawed in this book, and other things, like there are characters in here that don't appear in the movie. And yeah, it's just, if you don't know the story, just like read it, go watch the movie, but it's pretty well known. And then in my number 4 spot, I have Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. And of course, I had to include this too. This was a debut novel, and it was just so amazing, and it talked about so many important issues like racism, microaggressions, all those things. And yeah, and it's basically like been pitched as Southern Black Girl Magic meets a King Arthur retelling, and also secret societies. So it's just so wonderful. It's a chunky one, but definitely worth it. First in like a series. There's at least a second book coming out, but I don't know after that, how many more are coming out. And then the fifth book I chose is Lobizona by Romina Garber. This is so underrated, but it's such an important story, and it's so amazing too. The main character is Manu, and she and her mom are on the run, sort of, but not only from her dad's like mafia like family, but also from like ICE, and they don't want to get deported back to Argentina because they are illegal immigrants. But then Manu, in order to get her mom back after her mom's been captured by ICE, she goes to find out more about her roots and her dad's side of the family, and she finds out this whole magical world that she never knew existed, and she like starts attending this school, magic school for witches and werewolves, and it's just so cool. And yeah, it really like explores the meaning of what it means to be illegal in all sorts of contexts, and it's just such a powerful book, and I absolutely loved it. I recommend it to everyone. Book number 6, this is another great one. We have Woven in Moonlight by Isabel Ibanez. This is the first of a duology, and it has to do with like Bolivian politics, and and it's a fantasy, and it's just so pretty. Isabel designed the cover and the title, and it's just wonderful. So yeah, this is just so amazing, and really like tense, and like also intense as well, like Game of Thrones level intense. There's just so many things. The main character is like the decoy Condessa, so basically she's the stand-in for the actual Condessa, and goes in her place to become the bride of their enemy, and she feels like it's her duty to do that, but then at the same time it's just like she feels like she doesn't really have an identity. She can't really be herself because she has to pretend to be someone else. And yeah, she finds out some things, and that what she believed was correct about her people, her country, might not be so like cut and dry. So it's just really wonderful. I love the magic in here too. It's very like different, and yeah, I just love this so much, and I can't wait for the sequel, which actually just came out on Tuesday, so I'm excited for my copy. And then the next book I have, also underrated, is A Breath Too Late by Rocky Callan. Now, I personally know Rocky because she's one of my classmates from VCFA, and I remember like the first time I heard her read like one of her manuscripts, and like just a part of it, and it was just so amazing. I was taken aback. Like her writing is just on another level. So I really love this book. It's an epistolary novel, and just it's so heartbreaking. Trigger warnings for suicide because the main character, right off the bat, she's already died by suicide, and now she's like sort of like a ghost, but like her like she can't really move on to the other side for some reason, so she has to like relive her last days before she died. And yeah, it's just so heartbreaking. Also, trigger warnings for domestic abuse and some other heavy things. But yeah, it's so sad. I read this in 2 days because it is pretty short, but it was a rough 2 days because I was just like constantly crying while reading this. So this is probably the saddest book I read in 2020. But yeah, definitely deserves like all the love and recognition. Like more people need to read it. So I highly recommend it if if the triggers don't bother you. Definitely recommend. The next book, I don't own a copy, like a physical copy of. I read the ebook and listened to the audiobook, and it is Bunny by Mona Awad. And this book is just so weird. I heard about it from Lala from Books and Lala, and it just like sounded really interesting, and I was really surprised by this book because it was just like, well, besides the weirdness, like I really like Mona Awad's like writing style. It was like a little bit pretentious, kind of like The Secret History, I guess, which I love The Secret History. But yeah, it was just like something about it, and it was just so fascinating, even though there's like, and the plot is about like this girl who gets wrapped up in this cult at her college, and the girls all call each other Bunny, and they do some like questionable things. There's trigger warning for like some animal abuse and stuff. So yeah, if that bothers you, just like know that going in. It didn't really bother me that much. It was mostly off screen, but yeah. So I highly recommend it. It's definitely very weird. So if you don't really like weird books, I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, so the next book is The Library of Lost Things by Laura Taylor Namey. She is a local author, and I talked about this book in my Reading Rush wrap-up. I love this book so much. Like all the literary references, and also especially the rep for hoarding. Like I've never like seen a YA book that talks about that, and it did it in such a fascinating and timely and relevant, just like an understanding way. Like it did it so well. I just don't have words. But yeah, so I highly recommend this as well. And then book number 10. This is one of the first books I read in 2020 that I read in January of last year. Oh my gosh, it's been so long. But yeah, it is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. I have this really pretty Puffin and Bloom edition, and it's just so pretty. And like, I'd never read Anne of Green Gables. My middle name is actually Anne, Anne, just like this. Yeah, but I remember watching some of the cartoon when I was younger, and yeah, I enjoyed it, but I think I really enjoyed this book, and it helped that I listened to the audiobook while reading it because the audiobook narrator was really great. Anne is just so like charming and wonderful, and such a rascal as well. Like she's so sassy and fun, and she just like speaks in these long-winded like run-on sentences, and it's just so much fun. I really love this. I can see why it's a classic. So yeah. And then my last two books, 11 and 12, which I guess I could say they're honorable mentions, but number 11, I don't own either of these books either. But number 11 is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. Like, this book was so mind-blowing. It's described as like an Agatha Christie mystery meets Groundhog Day, which is very accurate. And it's just like so complex, and just keeps you guessing. And yeah, just like Stuart Turton's mind writing this, keeping all the details like intact, and the storylines, like it was such a wild ride. And then my last book is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is my first book by her. Like, I know she has like another really popular book that I own but haven't read yet, but I hope to get to it this year. But this was my first book, like I said, that I read by her, and I listened to the audiobook, which has a full cast, while reading along in the ebook, and it was really good. At first, I didn't really connect with it as much. I mean, like, the characters are really flawed, and yeah, I wasn't really getting the hype at the beginning, but by the end of the book, I was like, totally 5 stars, one of my new favorites. And yeah, it's just, there are some wonderful lines in the book, and it's just a wonderful book overall. So highly recommend all 12 of these books. Go check them out. And that's it for this video. Hope you liked it, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.